A working girl who hustled in more ways than one and made history by being brave and holding her head high when things got rough.
I got something between my legs that'll make a dead man come. Oh, that. I got something between my legs that'll make a dead man come. Oh, that. I'm gonna turn back my mattress and let you all my springs. I want you to find me, daddy, till the bell do ring. Oh, daddy, want you to shade and dry.
Hello, my name is Summer, and this is Paying For It. Thank you for being here for episode 9. Today I have another quickie but a goodie. Today's story is going to be told a little bit differently, but I think you will still be taken on a very, very unique journey. However, before we get to it, I'd like to have another little chit chat. Just a reminder that I have temporarily suspended subscriptions just so that I can get the price set to the correct price that I was hoping for. So that'll be back up March 14th. But until then, you can still see my beautiful face and all of that on TikTok and Twitter. And I might even post a few of the videos without any like pictures and stuff. Just until then, because I'm feeling nice, but don't get used to it. Yes. So sorry about last week's video. Last week just went kind of haywire, but we're back. We're back on schedule. Well, not really, but we're going to get back on schedule. And yeah. So, that is that for that update, I think. Oh, I got my nose pierced. I'm very excited about it. I think it looks totally cute, and it's been a while since I've had a piercing, and yeah, I'm excited to have one again, and it felt great. So yeah, I got my nose pierced. That was great. And March 14th, we should be back up. Is this sounding horrible? I cannot tell. March 14th, we should be back up and running for the subscriptions. But until then, you might get a lovely video version for free if I'm feeling kind. Who knows? All right. But I also wanted to take some time to maybe in the beginning of my shows start talking about some my mic's gonna go away from me because I fucked it up. Some current events in the sex world, yeah. So I thought it would be nice to kind of, I cannot tell if this audio is really bad right now or not. Okay, I don't think it is. I think I'm just tripping. But yeah, so I thought it would be nice to talk about some current events that are going on in the sex world and sex trade right now. And yeah, because this isn't just history, baby. We've got sex work is still the oldest, or people say that it's the oldest profession for a reason. And so yeah, I'm gonna pause real fast just to check my audio. I shall be right back. Okay, I think I'm back. Technical difficulties, what can I say? It wouldn't be me without me just having super technical difficulties, honestly. Anyways, let's get back to it. So yeah, I kind of wanted to start off my intros a little bit talking about current events that is going on currently within the sex trade world. And I was scrolling through Twitter and I came across a story that I would like to talk about. And I wanted to talk about the news coming out of New Zealand where 19 strippers were fired from the Calendar Girls in Wellington. Well, basically all they did was collectively signed an email request asking for negotiations surrounding new percentages, like basically negotiating like new percentages, reducing the percent that the club was taking and what they were walking away with. And they are supposed to have the right to do that because if you don't know, girls who work within strip clubs are technically considered freelancers. So they're like not technically hired on by the company. So they pay to be there. They pay to dance at that club. So they have to give money to the club to be able to dance there, and they're not technically getting paid from the club, if that makes sense. The club is not paying them. Their people are paying them, but they have to pay the club because the club is what is bringing the people in, I guess. But technically, really, the girls are what bringing the club in. The club is just profiting off of the girls. It's this weird standard within the industry, but basically as a independent contractor, you have the right to request for a higher cut for yourself, and just like a negotiation, you should be able to go to someone, especially if there are a few of you who come together and want to at least negotiate. That shouldn't be it. But instead of negotiating, they pretty much let go of all of the strippers who were wanting higher percentages for themselves. The dancers asked the Calendar Girls management for two things, and one of those things was clear income records and a 60% cut of their earnings instead of 50%. This is a quote from one of the girls who's kind of leading the charge on this because they're not going quietly, and good for them. Dancers should know whether they're an improved contract or not. The clubs aren't held accountable by anyone apart from us. And that's so very true. It's so often that the girls who work in clubs just kind of don't get any freaking respect, or like stuff like this happens all the time, and they have to kind of go away quietly because there's no other option for them. But now we have to kind of stand together and work on fixing this problem, because the clubs would not be there if they did not have girls coming to dance for them. So the girls, I think it's crazy that they have to ask for clearer income records, because in the article I was reading about this, some of the girls were walking out making no money. The club was taking all of their earnings, and that's so wild. That's crazy. And also, you should be able to have access to all your income records. That shouldn't be something you have to ask. You shouldn't have to be negotiating for them to provide that for you. Wild to me. Wild. But yeah, I did read this article. I think for sure girls should not be retaliated against because they're asking for a bigger cut. That just shows to you how ridiculous these clubs are. I think the more important part, though, is that they should definitely be able to have access to clear income records. That's just part of the whole thing. You should be able to see how much money you're making, how much money the club's taking from you. There should be no confusion there, because once you don't have access to that, shady shit happens. And Vice and clubs like that, they have not always the best people running them, and not always, money makes people do weird things. And I can tell you as a bartender, when every single every single restaurant I have worked at, I've had at least one manager stealing. Money can bring out the worst in people, especially if you already have sticky fingers. So if you're not clearly tracking what money's coming in and what money is going to you, what's going to the club, seems like not a very good thing. And also it seems like the fact that you're firing 19 girls who are asking for it makes it seem like you have some things you're trying to hide. Even if it's not that you're trying to hide their records, if you're just trying to fire girls because they're asking for more money of what they deserve, they deserve to at least have that negotiation, to sit down and talk about it, not just be fired for asking for it. I think the club came out and made a statement saying like most of the girls hadn't been dancing there anyways, and the reason they were asked to clean out their lockers was because they needed more locker room for newer people, and these people hadn't been dancing, so they only had a limited number of lockers, and that's the reason. But within them firing these girls, or letting them go or whatever, asking them to clean out their lockers pretty much, that same day they posted that. They posted another ad looking to hire more dancers. So it's not like they were just trying to clean out lockers. They clearly needed these girls, and if 19 of them signed, clearly 19 of them were still dancing at that club. So it makes no sense, the club's response, whatever. But the girls should be able to at least open the door to have negotiations about their pay or how much the club's getting from them. And they should have clear records of the money being brought in. It's so rude and disrespectful to think otherwise. Stripping is real work. Real money is made, and they should have the same rights that any other independent contractor has. And that's how I feel. I'm curious to know your thoughts on just the fact that do you think the club had the right to even let them go? Do you think that they are I'm just curious on what your thoughts on this story are. So yeah, let me know. Let me know what you think. Okay, today's story, we are going on a journey. And for this queen, we are really going to be focusing on one specific time within her life. The rest of her life is sadly lost to history. But what we do know is so fucking fascinating, enough that it's worth sitting here to tell you. You're gonna be like, what the fuck, when I get into this, okay? All right, so with that being said, grab yourself a mocktail, a cocktail, a coffee, whatever you fancy. In today's case, I've got a lovely spicy mocktail because it's 10:30 in the morning. So yes, grab yourself a drink, sit back, relax, and let me take you back to 1836 Manhattan. Cheers. Woo, that's spicy. That's spicy. Jesus. I also got an energy drink that I'm apparently chasing with. Okay, June 11th, 1836. Mary Jones, an African-American woman working within Green Street, which is now pretty much like downtown Manhattan. Green Street was known at the time for being a red light district in the 1800s. So Mary's working that street. She's doing her thing. She's making hopefully some money, honey. So eventually Mary runs into Robert Helsman. Robert Helsman was a white mason worker, and upon meeting Mary, he solicited sexual services from her. That evening, they go into the alleyway, they do their thing, and when he finishes, they part ways. Returning home, Robert, though, discovered that his wallet that had contained $99, which back then was like, he ballin', baby, he ballin', had been stolen and replaced with an empty wallet belonging to another man. Ooh, things are spicy, Mary. What you doing? What you doing? Understandably upset about being robbed, he decided to pay the other man whose wallet he found instead of his own a visit. He wanted to know, like, what the fuck? Why do I have your wallet instead of mine? Robert is able to find this man, and at first the man denies everything, being like with Mary, getting his wallet stolen, everything. He's like, not me, don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do this, because at this point, Robert is assuming that Mary hustled in more ways than one, if you know what I'm saying. So he's like, I just got hustled. She stole my wallet. She must have stolen yours. That's why I have it. Like, tell me about what happened. And this guy's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Wasn't me, don't know. But eventually, though, Robert is finally able to get the man to admit that he had indeed bought services off of Mary, and she had indeed been the one he believed to pickpocket him as well. But he was just like, what do you do about it, Robert was like, okay, man, we can't let this slide. We cannot let this shit stand. We must go to the cops. A crime has been committed. Now, I'm not making light about someone being, like, robbed. Like, I get it. That's not cool, but the story is kind of funny to me, a little bit, okay? Especially where we're getting, okay? I'm getting ahead of myself, though. The other man, though, he was like, oh, no. Like, I will not be going to the cops. He was pretty afraid to go to the police, afraid of exposing himself. Now, mind you, that at this point, soliciting sex was not illegal. So prostitution at this point was not illegal. So what was he worried about being exposed for? Was he worried about the stigma that came along with buying sex, if there was one? Or maybe it was something different entirely. I mean, I'm still getting ahead of myself, so we will get there. But what was he afraid of exposing himself really about? So this man was like, nah, I'm good. I'm not going to the cops. No, thank you. Have a great day. I'm just going to deal with it. Take the L. Okay. However, Robert had no shame. He was not willing to take this loss. So he went to the cops the next day and reported the crime of his wallet being stolen. That same night, the cops went out looking for Mary Jones. So they set up this sting operation immediately. I'm not sure if they just had nothing to do. Because nowadays, maybe nowadays, if you went and said, I guess, you know what? Because it's like a sex worker nowadays, they probably would do something similar, trying to set up a sting or something. But I feel like if this was just random, it would not go this way. But apparently the 1800s police force in Manhattan didn't have much to do, because they got right on this. That same night that the police report is filed, the cops went out looking for Mary Jones. It was midnight that night, so basically the next morning, that they found her working Green Street. There she is, doing her thing, making her money. Let's go, honey. She's hopefully not stealing from people, but I digress. An undercover police officer then goes on to solicitate a service from Mary. She's like, hell yeah, come follow me to this alleyway. I'll give you what you want. And so that's what they do. They find themselves in the exact same alleyway that Robert and her did their thing in. Okay. So this is clearly her stomping grounds. It was there that this cop attempted to detain her. And she's like, oh, shit. So she starts resisting the officer's attempt to grab her. She's like duking him out, like, no thanks. Like, no. And so during this tussle, she used the tussle to attempt to rid herself of several wallet-sized pocketbooks so they wouldn't be found on her person. She's like, oh, fuck, I'm getting caught. I need to, like, dump these. I need to get this shit off of me. So she's, like, tussling with the cops, running, throwing pocketbooks out of her. Like, where does she keep them? Because I know she's wearing a dress, so like where but she's figuring it out. She has a system, but she's throwing them off of her. She's like, I gotta get rid of this cannot be on me. And so there she goes. She's throwing her wallets, running from the cops, at least attempting to run from the cops. It doesn't go her way though, because she is still detained, and the wallets were recovered by the police once she was actually like arrested. After being detained, they were also able to search her apartment. And in her apartment, they find a trunk that contains several banknotes and more stolen wallets. This girl, she's out there hustling. Okay. Now, I'm not making light of someone. Don't go out stealing people's shit, okay? Like, that is very rude. I'm just telling her story, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're here for it though, okay? It happened. I'm kind of confused though, because like I'm not sure if like when they had her like detained, they were able to just go to her, like she told them where she lived and like go to her apartment, or if this happened after they had her in the jail or whatever. But somehow they were able to go to her apartment. They discovered that this girl does this often, quite often actually, and so they were like, we gotta charge her, okay? There are some things we have to charge her for. While they were searching her apartment, they also started to like search her, pat her down, you know? And what they discovered was way more than just a few stolen wallets. See, they found Mary Jones was actually packing a penis. That's right. Mary Jones was not born a female. This working girl was actually a working boy. So you can imagine that in the 1800s, this was a huge motherfucking scandal for New York. Mary was arrested and put in jail. And 5 days later, she was scheduled to appear in court as she was being charged with grand larceny. She was just being charged with grand larceny because as they tried to investigate more, because they were like, shit, this is like a lot, okay? Like, not only is she out here stealing men's wallets and, you know, soliciting sex, but she's out here doing it all while being a male dressed up as a female. So, see, prostitution was not illegal. However, sodomy was. So during the cops' investigation, they went to every wallet owner they found within Mary's possession in attempts to get one of them, just one of them, to not only give a statement, but also get them to admit what services they actually purchased from Mary. They wanted her to they wanted more information on her because they did not just want to try her for grand larceny. They wanted to nail the book at her because, you know, incredibly racist. Don't forget this is an African American woman. And on top of that, this world has always been judgmental as fuck. So it was no difference. It was worse, actually, back in the 1800s. So, they just wanted to, throw it all at her. But they went to everyone trying to get someone to admit what services they actually bought, because something's not adding up here, if you get what I mean. Not a single man, though, would admit to anything other than having normal paid sex. But how could that be, you're asking? Because again, something's not adding up. Well, listen, it's most likely that all of these men were lying out of their fucking teeth. Anal was definitely the service that was purchased. It had to be. It just had to be. Okay? And I refuse to believe even back then that in the 1800s, men were this stupid to think that anything different. Okay? But listen, they had to, the court system and the newspapers had to run with something. However, because the cops had no actual proof of this, since like not a single man would admit to it, I'm sure they were assuming they would get in trouble, but also this was like a cardinal sin, so like they're already like, no, I want nothing to do with this, like let's keep it moving kind of thing. The newspapers, though, got a hold of the fact that Mary Jones was a female presenting man, and they ran with a story in the news that is quite fucking hilarious. Get this. Their news stories and headlines ran with this is hilarious. They basically stated that Mary Jones worked as a prostitute and she was able to create a prosthetic vagina that she fashioned using 2 pieces of beef. And I'm sure if you're not watching the video version, you're very confused, but like, my face says it all. Weird, but I'm just giving y'all a look. Like, we know that's not true, right? We know we're smarter than that. Anyways, 2 pieces of beef. And you bet your ass that even back then, they're all gossipies. Like, just a minute. Everyone's a gossip fiend, okay? Everyone likes that juicy, juicy gossip. So, yeah, so once the newspapers got a hold of that piece of information, they ran with it, with headlines calling her like Beefsteak Jones and Man Monster. So they just gave her all these nicknames. So in history, when looking up Mary Jones, you really are finding Beefsteak Jones or Beefsteak Mary, because that is what we know of her. It's crazy. Now, in the queer community, if you look into their history, I've never seen anything quite like this, of anyone actually having done this. And I'm gonna lose it. Like, it will be so funny if it is so funny if this is true. If she actually like was able to fool men into giving them money, and they're over here. I'm gonna get raw as fuck right now. Sorry. They're over here fucking beef. Hi, Dreamy. I know. You love it when I talk about this. Like, they're over here fucking beef and they're just like, they don't know. I know that our sexual, like, history and, like, sexual ed, like, sex ed was not a thing back then. But I really, really would be impressed if she was able to just really fool men, not just once, not just twice, but several motherfucking times with beef. I can't. Yeah, so this made news. Of course it did. It was the 1800s. This is a scandal. This is not something you see. Like, today, if someone came out like, and this was the headlines, I would be like, of course, fascinated and laugh my ass off. But it would also not be as scandalous, I would say. I mean, it would still probably be if like the headlines read like, oh, prostitute used beef to fool men. Like, it would be still very, very scandalous. But this was in the 1800s. So like, people were freaking the fuck out. So the case became more than just a prostitute getting in trouble for stealing and hustling. So when the trial began, a lot of people were interested. A lot of people showed up to watch this whole thing go down. They wanted to see the man monster in person. So on June 16th, Mary appears in court, doing something that was so incredibly brave for the time. After 5 days in jail, she still shows up dressed in her feminine attire, wearing a wig, white earrings, and a dress, even though she knows that it is reported on that she was born a male. So like, she still was like, I'm standing by this, I'm going to court, I will do it with my head held high. Mary Jones was subject to a ton of mockery while entering this courtroom and while the trial went on. As the trial was held in front of an audience, and even when entering the courtroom, people were very cruel to her. One man went as far as pulling her wig off and laughing at her. Mary, though, proceeded, like I said, with her head held high. Like, she did not let the shame of the stigma of how, like, this was her. She felt confident and beautiful. I'm sure she was feeling not great because she was facing grand larceny charges, but she could have very well not shown up in that court as a woman, but she did because that was her truth and she was sticking with it, and good for her. In court, she was asked her age, place of birth, business, and residence. I will be 33 years of age on the 12th day of December. Was born in this city and get a living by cooking, waiting, and live at number 108 Green Street. She was then asked by the judge, what is your right name? And let me introduce you to Peter Swirly. Peter Swirly, I am a man, later asked, what induced you to dress in women's clothing? Peter Swirly answered, I have been in the practice of waiting upon girls of ill fame and made up their bed and received the company at the door and received the money for rooms, and they introduced me to dress in women's clothing, saying I look so much better in them, and I have always attended parties among the people of my own color dressed this way. And in New Orleans, I always dressed in this way, adding that he had been in the state service and served in Louisiana. Also, if you cannot see, if you're not watching the video, my cat, she is just being the cutest right now. She's like, I'm sure maybe you can hear her purring, but she wants the attention, so she's getting it. So Peter Swirly, yeah, I think that's how you say it. Born on December 12th, 1803, they were one of the first openly African-American transgender in New York. During the day, Peter would dress like a male. He had a job that he presented male in the morning, and he also, at one point, like I said earlier, served in the service, perhaps as a soldier or a cook, maybe a waiter. It's very unclear what he did in the state service, but he was in the service. Then at night, he would dress up, become Mary Jones, and solicit sexual services from the men around town, those horny boys. Okay, so bringing us back to the trial. Mary pled not guilty to the grand larceny charges. However, of course, the judge found her guilty and sentenced her to 5 years in jail. To be honest, she wasn't getting away from those charges. There was probably way too much evidence against her, and this trial was more than just her hustling men out of their wallets and shit. They really wanted to get her for not the grand larceny charges, not the wallets, but what they felt was immoral and wrong. They wanted to get her on that. They wanted to nail that in the coffin. But they were only really able to find her guilty of what the real crime she committed, and that's theft. Yeah, she was sentenced by the judge to 5 years in jail. She served her sentence in Sing Sing. Although this case should have been focused on the theft, most of the coverage and attention it gained was due to the fact that she was a transgender woman. 4 years after being released from prison, she was arrested again for theft. The same headlines ran with nicknames Beefsteak Pete and Man Monster. It is unclear her sentencing in this trial, and after this, most of the remaining years of Mary's are lost to the history. So, we're not really sure what happens to her after this last arrest. We know that as far as records go, this was her last arrest, and that's pretty much Mary's story. So what we know of Mary ends here. However, her story will live on forever within history, of course. What we know of Mary's story is very intriguing to me, as I'm sure we are aware how racist and judgmental this time period was. So even though I don't agree with Mary's decision to pickpocket and steal, I think that's quite wrong. I'm glad that her story was somewhat documented within society, because without this grand larceny charge, we would not know about her, and we would not know. It just gives us written history that people have been living their true life, whether in secret or not, for all of time. So just let people be people. Goddamn. Even nowadays, we're still dealing with this shit. Like, let people be free, do their thing, live their life. If they want to dress up and be a girl, let them. Damn, we're cute. I get it. Come over, be cute with us. And if you want to dress up and be a man, I get it. Damn. You get the respect. Whatever. Do your thing. I mean, I just think people should be able to do their thing. That's why sex work is also, sex work and activism is also LGBTQ plus activism. You cannot fight for one right without fighting for the other right. They're so intertwined. We saw that in Norma Wallace's story, one of her really good regulars who came on a Saturday and loved to dress up and dance with the girls. We see this throughout history, and we specifically see it within the sex work history, because that was where they were able to be free, even if it was just for a few hours at night, once a week, to live their true feelings or live in a way that made them feel good. And so I just think that if you're fighting for sex workers' rights, you're fighting for just in general everybody's rights, you should be free to be able to be yourself, as long as you're not hurting anyone or doing anything vile. Okay, I'm not gonna get into that, but don't be vile. Talking to you, nasty men's, just don't be vile, okay? Be a good person, be happy, be free, but don't be sick, you sickos. Okay, I'm glad that her story was somewhat documented, like I was saying, within society, because nowadays she is celebrated by modern historians for her bravery and actions in that courtroom, and for sharing her experiences as a transgender Black person. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful story. I mean, like I said, I don't agree with her stealing from people, but I am glad it happened so that we could know that this happened in the 1800s, that people were living this way. She was not the only one. She was just the only one who got caught, I guess. And she probably isn't even the only one who got caught. But it is a brave thing to live that way back in the 1800s when, she's so lucky she didn't there is violence in this world and I can't. Mary's overall story is more important than just the fact that she was a thief. Forgiving her for that is important because it is important to look at her story as what it is. Proof that even back in the 1800s, people were still willing to risk their lives to live authentically, even if it was only during the late hours of the night. Now, was the beefsteak prosthetic vagina real, or was it something the newspapers ran with just to make sense of no one coming forward on how they were able to get the services they paid for? We really only have what we know to go on. I will say that it would be so wild, though, if that were the truth. So wild. If she was able to fool men with a beef vagina, well, that really says more about the men than it does Mary, now doesn't it? Get it together, men. But to be fair, I don't think that that's the case. I think that every single man she was with, even if she was just saying that's all she offered or whatever, but and I don't think men cared. I'm trying to say this in a way that just doesn't sound crazy, but if you're oh, sorry, I'm on my period or whatever, we can only do anal. You think a guy's going to turn it down? No. So yeah, my question to you guys though, I think in the overall is, do you think the men knew that she was a man? Or do you think, especially because the guy who came out, the guy who didn't want to go to the cops about his wallet that Robert went and met, do you think it seems like he knew, right? He didn't want to expose himself. So I'm just curious on your opinion on that part. Do you think my God, I'm burping. Do you think the men who were with Mary knew that she was a man? Or you think that she was able to fool them with anal? Or I'm just, my curiosity there is how many of the men that she was with actually knew? Or how many of them, I guess maybe they didn't know. Maybe she was really able to fool them with, I don't know, but I am curious about that. But I will also say this, I guess who cares? In a way, who cares? I highly doubt though that she was fooling. If she's out here fooling men with vaginas, then every girl in the entire world, girl, let that body shame. If you have body shame, if you're worried about because I know a lot of women have stress and body worry about how it is down there. Don't love yourself, first of all. But also, if Mary's over here fooling people with beef, you're fine. It's that simple. So that is the very, very intriguing story of Mary Jones. Her story is important not only because she was a working girl, but one of the first openly recorded transgenders in New York. Yeah, so openly recorded transgender woman in New York. Sex workers' rights is also human rights. I think Mary's story is so brave. I wish that we know more about her life after her sentencing, after she was released. Though it seems like she did not learn her lesson because she went right back to it. Right back to thieving. Okay. Do your thing. Get your money any other way if you're, but stop stealing. Okay. But yes, like I said, I wish that we knew more about her life, even before, after, whatever. I wish we had no more information. But that, though, is how history goes. So we are left with just a brief glimpse into the history of a very, very brave person. That is it for me tonight. I hope you enjoyed this story. If you haven't already, please consider liking and leaving a review. I have linked an article about the 19 women who were abruptly asked to leave their club for doing something they should have the right to do. So if you'd like to look into that, that should be down below. I also have my resources for this story down below about Mary Jones if you want to look more into it, because it's very fascinating. All right. And that is that for me tonight. And until next week, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening, a great weekend, and I will see you next time. Bye. Mary Jones, beefsteak, yeah. Goodbye.
I got something between my legs that'll make a dead man come. Oh, that. I got something between my legs that'll make a dead man come. Oh, that. I'm gonna turn back my